I really don't care about my opinion tonight on this. It's going to be unusual. I just want to go through. I just think it's interesting how this has developed between these two women, and both of whom I respect in a lot of ways for having more balls, if I can say that, honestly, than probably any other women that I know outside of Meghan McCain. You know, if you had to ask me whom have I encountered through the last crazy 4+ years of doing the YouTube social media stuff that I've done and looking into controversial things that I've looked into and expounding often very unpopular opinions, who have I seen in this whole landscape who has guts and courage? And I'd have to say, nobody can deny that Candace Owens has got mega balls, even on things that I disagree with her on, Macron, or things that I agree with her on, Baldoni or whatever. But like, nobody can deny the guts, right? And she continues to show those guts with her coverage of the Weinstein situation. So, and then ditto for House and Habit, Jessica Krauss. I mean, she has tackled things. I've seen her tackle things over the years, topics, and espouse opinions over the years that I would be terrified and unwilling to espouse. Honestly, like, she makes me like, sometimes these two women make me feel like a coward. And so I come at this actually from a lot of respect, but it's also like an interesting gossipy story. Like, damn, you know, these two incredibly like powerful, intellectual, intimidating women are that I thought were on the same side and whatever. And now they're sniping at each other. And if you doubt what I'm saying, like, just go to their Instagram. We're going to go to their Instagrams a little bit later. And they have all day and into the evening continued to, whatever term you want to use, snipe at each other or trade barbs or what have you. I don't think that actually either of them hate each other or they're going to go to some kind of war or anything, right? I don't see this thing extending into multiple days, but for today, it is kind of funny. So anyway, that's what we're going to be doing. That's what we're going to be looking at these things and talking about these things. So I feel like there was something though that I forgot that I was going to say. And now I don't remember it, which is fine. So let's get into it. I think that the place to start is to just briefly, for people who, I think everybody knows Candace Owens, or at least thinks they know her or whatever, right? But and I think that no offense to Jessica either, but there might be a few of my viewers who are not as familiar with her. So let me just say that she has become very, very quickly over the last several years hugely successful on social media. I mean, she's got what, 1.5 million followers on Instagram, and she has broken a lot of interesting stories, and she has now become an official member of the White House press pool, which has come, brought with it some controversy, as you would expect. We'll talk about that in a moment. But she has one foot in the political world. She has done all kinds of, I'd say, chummy in a good way, exposés on RFK and hung out at the Kennedy compound. And she has definitely ensconced herself in the MAGA world. And she goes to parties in Palm Beach and stuff and all of that. And like does these really entertaining write-ups about it on her Substack and also on her Instagram, which is her primary format. She doesn't really do YouTube. But she Instagrams like a motherfucker, seriously, like very prodigious and stuff. Now, most people got to know Jessica through the Depp versus Heard trial, and that's where I came upon her work as well, because she broke several of what were considered salacious, gossipy stories about Amber Heard leading up to and during the trial. And you probably remember the more edgy or salacious ones, like about Amber luring a girlfriend. I'm trying to remember, luring a girlfriend to her apartment and drugging her or whatever. Like, what was all that even? I think I blocked a lot of that. But anyway, Jessica was breaking a lot of stuff and she was getting a lot of heat for it. And then she also covered the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. And she has been, I know she has been wrongly pilloried as someone who believes that Maxwell is innocent. And it's not that, but she believes that Maxwell has been left as a scapegoat, basically holding the bag while all of these men get away with all this stuff. I mean, we still don't know who Epstein's Johns were, so to speak, right? We don't know all of his associates. What, this was just a one man, one woman thing going on? So that's been Jessica's argument. And so Jessica has even worn a Free Ghislaine t-shirt at times. I believe she even wore it to the White House and got some, again, got some shit for that, or a lot of shit for that, and people not understanding that that was meant as a kind of a stunt, again, to call attention to the fact that all of the blame for the Epstein operation that all of these different people and all these powerful men were involved in or benefiting from or using somehow gets dumped on this one woman who actually, before she'd been arrested, had years before successfully tried and had broken away from Epstein, which doesn't excuse this terrible stuff that she was doing when she was with him. But I'm saying that what Jessica has done in regard to the Ghislaine Maxwell thing and the Epstein thing is to continue to try to exert a lot of pressure on the government to tell us who are the other guys involved in this, right? Give us information. So a little bit more about that in a moment. But anyway, so that's who she is. And again, someone that I deeply respect, even on those times, occasionally, as with everyone, that I do disagree with her on some things, although not a lot. So I did not know that Jessica had written and published on her Substack several days ago an essay, which actually is not primarily about Candace Owens, which again, that doesn't mean that Candace Owens can't take offense at things that are said about her or implied in that. But I'm just saying that I think that one thing that a lot of people might not be aware of who watch Candace's program today is the full context and full extent of the essay that Jessica wrote and who her anger was really mostly directed at. And anyway, so this is the article, and you can listen or read along or what have you. Let me see. I'm going to make it a little bigger in case people want to read for themselves. This is all available on her Substack, and this one is free, I believe, as well. By the way, thank you for joining us, and thank you to my mods. I see Vanessa here. I know that it's getting later, and also my other mods, Laura B, AJ, and Rebel Bird, always appreciate you. Okay, here we go. So this is called In Defense of Gossip. Jessica wrote this herself. Came out March 22nd. So yeah, just several days ago. All right. Now there's a quote here. I don't think it's interesting, but it's not essential reading here. So I'm just going to go over that or skip over that. And then here we go with her article. So it starts off with this question: are we still blaming everything on a post-eclipse hangover? Because I'm still feeling defensive, caught in a fresh wave of feminist rage. And typically, a uniquely positioned moon is my favorite instigator. Now, I just want to say also, in Jessica's defense here with this, that she does, if you read the beginning of her article, she does clearly announce what her mood is. So she says, I am feeling defensive. Okay. I mean, I really props to her for saying that, right? Like, here I am, here's the mood, right up. I'm not hiding this. I'm coming from a place of feeling defensive, caught in, she says, a fresh wave of feminist rage. So again, this is context matters. The way she's presenting it is like, okay, yeah, I'm pissed off, I'm defensive. And I think that it's almost a way, knowingly or maybe unintentionally, of also letting us know that what we're about to read, we need to cut her a little slack because she's having a moment, as we used to say, or as some still say, I guess, I need a moment, give me a moment, I'm having a moment here. And so anyway, I think that's interesting. So she says, for the past week, I've been unloading grievances via text about my growing disdain for podcast bros, the ones slouched in hoodies on dimly lit man cave sets, tossing around bro and dude as they dissect world events with the unchecked confidence of fraternity boys raised on praise, privilege, and a steady diet of Joe Rogan. Now, I do not watch, I'm talking about me personally, I don't watch much of anyone else's YouTube. I should, but I just don't have time. And so am I really familiar? Yes, I'm familiar with Joe Rogan. Every now and then I'll catch a clip from a show that my guy's watching, right? Or whatever. If he has a guest on that I'm really into, I'll listen to it. But I don't, and then I'm also vaguely familiar with the Theo, what's his name? I just forgot it. Theo, I was going to say Theo James, but that's not right. That's the Divergent guy, isn't it? Oh, I'm so confused. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm sort of vaguely aware of what she's talking about, but not really here. But so anyway, She says, "They used to bore me. Now I find them insufferable. I went from indifferent to outright insulted by their predictable dominance in media, their smug assumption that the conversation belongs to them. They're confident, sure, but they're not at all that interesting, mostly because they all follow the same script and cadence. Low key, I think they loathe women in their space. But maybe that's just my pesky hormones talking." Now, look, if you don't know the background or the context, and here I'm going to interject a bit. If you don't know the background and the context of what she's in trying to respond to here, then it is just going to seem like crazy. Like, what is this woman bitching about, basically, right? And so I understand if people, that's their immediate reaction, but you have to remember, and again, I'm not weighing in one way or the other on this thing, but you have to remember what Jessica, I think, looking at this from a distance, what I think she has been through in the last month. I don't know how many of you are aware of the kind of heat that she and the kind of shit that she and some of the other quote unquote MAGA influencers, I don't even know if she claims that title or not, but MAGA influencers, the shit that they got from their own side too, when they participated in that White House event where the White House gave them the Epstein files, and they weren't really the Epstein files. There were a few files, right, in a binder, and it turned out honestly to be this kind of embarrassing, cheesy, stupid thing. And the people who attended, or who I should say were selected, invited, and the same people who got included in the White House press pool now, like, a lot, they were very successful, like House and Habit, a number of really successful people with a lot of views, successful podcasters and Instagrammers, et cetera, right? So here's the thing, is it was presented. Let me see if I can get a picture actually from this. Just a second. Yeah. So again, if you don't care about all the backstory, that is fine, but we're doing a deep dive, as I said we would, and so I want you to understand. So pictures like this, I know it's a little grainy, but pictures like this, like you're seeing on the right here, these influencers, like Jessica, she's not in this picture, but she was in others. No, she is actually. I think she's back there in the hat behind that guy. They got a lot of shit for the fact that this turned out to basically be a White House publicity stunt. They were not given the actual, like, legit secret Epstein files with like names and stuff. It was basically just a stunt, I think, for the White House to make it seem like they had given some information. And so, but here's the thing, that I don't think the influencers knew that. And so I put myself in the position of one of these people. And I think, especially if I were into politics, that's not my bag, at least on my program, right? But let's say that I were. And I'm contacted by the White House, and the White House, or representatives of the White House, and they say to me, "We are finally going to release important Epstein files, and we want you and a select group of other new media, social media people to come to the White House, and we're going to give these to you as a token of our support, as a token of our recognition of your new influence in the new social media landscape," or whatever. And these people, again, were also included in the White House press pool. And this is the first time that you would have people, influencers, if you want to use that term, podcasters, Instagrammers, like House and Habit, included in an official White House press pool. Because typically, in my day, when I was a young gal, the official White House press pool was like really old people working for the New York Times, or whatever, right? And which is fine. And it was actually better than now, because I think that was, superior media 30 years ago or whatever, arguably. But the point is that this sounded theoretically like a really cool thing and like a good thing. Like, I can imagine that the influencers thought, okay, I'm going to go to this, and we're going to get these Epstein files that everyone has been yelling for and demanding, and I'm going to be one of the ones who is able to disseminate those to the public. Like, I don't see the problem with it. I really don't. I still don't. But what happened is, once it became clear that it was basically a stunt, then, and there were a lot of people all over the political spectrum who were pissed off about this, then the influencers themselves got a lot of shit. And it also did not, and again, I'm not trying to, like, we haven't even gotten to Candace Owens yet, and I'm not trying to explain or justify anything that anyone said that might have been an misrepresentation or hurtful or whatever, if that, and maybe not, though. But I'm just trying to give you, again, like a deep dive into like what was fueling this, because I look at these two women, again, I look at Candace Owens and I look at House and Habit, and these are both really extremely successful, powerful, ballsy women that in various ways I respect. And I just think, I think people should understand if they're going to resolve this. They probably already will have it resolved by tomorrow. But I just want everybody to know like what this was about. I think it makes a lot more sense if you get into it. Now, here's another little wrinkle in the thing with Jessica Krauss and the White House event before I move back to her essay, is that I don't know. I think that she actually wore this. She has this shirt. You'll see here. Just a second. She's got a Free Ghislaine shirt, and I mentioned it before. And again, it's not, as I understand it, and as I think people who consume her content regularly understand it, this is not saying that Ghislaine Maxwell is innocent of what she's accused of. Again, this is supposed to be basically a kind of a satirical call to action of like, we want to know who else, aside from Ghislaine Maxwell, was in on this thing. All the guys that are being protected, all the guys whose names we don't know, in the Epstein files, right? So, but you can see obviously how this would get misinterpreted, or how people who don't really know what's going on, first thing they know is there's this influencer that maybe they've never heard of or only vaguely heard of. There's this influencer that was part of this White House stunt that everybody's mad about, this stupid White House stunt. And then what? She's wearing a Free Ghislaine shirt? Like what? So she got a lot of shit, I guess, is what I'm saying, between between this and, just she gets a lot of shit in general from people who don't understand her work at times. And so she got a lot of shit for this. And I just remember even at the time looking at some of the shit that she and others were getting online, some of the lambasting and castigation of them, and just the jokes and the pillaring and everything. And I thought, man, if that were me, that really would get to me. That would hurt. And I remember thinking, like, I feel bad for her. I feel bad for some of the others. Some of them are jackasses in that group. So I was like, good riddance. Some of those MAGA, some of those MAGA influencers, some of them are just a bit much to take. So I wasn't shedding any tears for some of them. I was not crying for Argentina for some of them, but I did feel bad for Jessica and a few others. So I was like, that wasn't cool. They were kind of lured into that by the White House. They thought they were going to be a part of something really special and something that would really be seen as like, we're disseminating this information to the public, right? And then it just kind of like turned into a disaster. So anyway, all right. So she's coming off the heels of that. Jessica Krauss is, and she's getting a lot, and she feels like it. And the thing about the bros or whatever, oops, sorry, 1 second. The thing about the sorry about that, y'all. Back we go. Just a second. So the thing about the bros is that I guess that a number of the guys, I don't know if it was specifically Joe Rogan, but I guess a number of the people that were giving Jessica and these influencers a hard time for this were some of these podcast bros or whatever. I mean, I even saw it online on Twitter. And again, I'm not saying that, that they shouldn't have or whatever. I get people were really mad about this stunt, but they should have been mad at the White House and not necessarily mad at, and I don't think mad at people like Jessica. Okay, give me a second. I'm gonna go away to get her essay and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Somebody said CIA. Yeah, absolutely. It's Ari Emanuel. I like to joke whenever my stuff goes out now that it's Ari Emanuel. Okay, back to where we were. And I'm not going to stop this much going on from here, but I'm going to read through it pretty fast. But I just wanted you to know what the setup is for this. Okay. So she's talking about these podcast bros, and she says, low key, I think they loathe women in their space. But maybe that's just, I'm going to make it a little bigger, but maybe that's just my pesky hormones talking, obviously being satirical here. I'm also obviously fed up with the recycled rhetoric aimed at me, at what I do, as men in this industry struggle to comprehend how a woman influencer was welcomed into the White House. Now, again, do I think maybe she is overgeneralizing here, that they were talking, was the critique really about the woman influencer, or was it about the fact that you had these influencers in general that people were upset with? Again, I don't know, but look, I didn't see the videos that she is attesting to here, and so I don't want to contradict her, but I'm saying again, as she said at the beginning of this whole essay, she's upset, right? Okay, I'm going to read through this fast now. She says, as they see it, she's talking about these commentators upset with her. As they see it, you can transition from a sports broadcaster, a basic barstool commentator, a mediocre comedian in an ill-fitting shirt on YouTube, or even an inarticulate Bitcoin bro into a media voice. But God forbid they let a mother/lifestyle blogger into the elite corner of the presidential press pool to relay information to the masses. I remember once, early on during RFK's campaign, a man on staff told me I might be too controversial to snag an early interview. This stemmed from backlash that I'd weathered during the Danny Masterson trial. Oh, I remember that. I remember that very, very well. I still have people, by the way, getting on my case for that who say, but you thought Danny Masterson was innocent. No, I never said that. And this is where I so get some of the anger that Jessica feels at times with being misunderstood. I must have said 100 times that I thought Danny Masterson was probably guilty, but people don't hear that. You know what they hear? I had a problem with one of his primary accusers trying to take down Ashton Kutcher. I had a problem with what I thought were some issues seemingly in the case against Danny Masterson. And there was a witness at the time that Jessica Krauss had, a witness, yes, a secret witness who didn't want to identify herself to the public, but she had identified herself to Jessica and verified who she was, but someone close to Masterson who said there was an entirely different story here, and that, his accusers were not who they said they were, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know, and I never looked into it because I moved on to other things. But for a while, I was supporting Jessica's right to have a contrarian view on the Masterson case, or to at least ask some questions. And it's like, you couldn't even ask questions because people's head would explode. And then they would say, you think Danny Masterson is innocent. But that's how it is anyway. All right. So she's talking about that. And she says, I laughed, first because this man assumed he could define my controversy risk. She's saying she laughed at the guy who told her that she was too controversial to interview RFK at that point. Second, if RFK was fine appearing on Bobby Lee's podcast after Lee publicly described having sex with a scared 14-year-old prostitute. I don't even know if I can say that stuff. YouTube will demonetize this video, but you can read it yourself. Bobby Lee, apparently, I don't know who this guy is, the fuck this guy is, but Bobby Lee's a podcaster, and he publicly described this act. He could surely drive me around in his old dirty dog van. Well, that is an interesting point there. So I understand what she's saying. It's also unfortunate how none of these guys, now she's talking about the podcast bros again that she feels have been criticizing her unfairly. It's also unfortunate how none of these guys stop to consider what a mother juggles on a daily basis. Many of us do it in addition to a full-time job. In my case, for example, between covering real-time political updates, curating news for IG for other mothers to read, answering emails, taking calls, texting sources, flying cross-country to cover events, I'm also coordinating post-care for my middle son's eye surgery this week, checking in on my homesick oldest, offering love advice to a 10-year-old, signing off on homework, packing for science camp. Man, I'm so glad I don't have kids. Anyway, tracking. I know that's not the point here. Don't mean to step up. This is me talking now, not Jessica, but like I just know that's not the point of what she's saying. And I know that a bunch of moms going to get mad at me for even talking like this, but I'm so glad I don't have kids when I read stuff like this. I literally could not do all this. How the fuck is anyone a parent this day and age? How the fuck do you do it? Do you realize, as someone who does not have kids and will never have kids, do you realize how like in awe/aghast I am at what parents do? Just the actual birthing of the child. I know that, I know for some women it's not so painful. For other women, it's like PTSD inducing trauma and then everything in between. But I am just in awe, as someone whose body will never do that. It's like something from fucking Aliens to me. Like, I might as well be watching the movie Aliens where that shit is coming out of their chest. That is exactly what most of you women have done in your life or will do in your life, and I'm just like, "Whoa." I look at all of you, I when I see women with the bump, I'm just like, "Wow. Wow, there's actually a creature expanding inside of her that is gonna tear its way out soon. Wow." Well, I guess it's not tearing. Well, I guess it kind of is. I don't know. We could talk about that. I didn't even know until recently how fetuses breathe, like in the womb, until because I started thinking one day, I was like, why don't babies when they're being born smother to death? Because they're stuck in that birth canal a long time. How are they getting air? And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, but they weren't breathing in the womb either. How were they getting air then? It's a whole dimension I didn't even know. Anyway, sorry, that's going nowhere. Back to House and Habit. So she's talking about all this shit that she's that she's got to do in in a typical day. Signing off on homework, packing for science camp, tracking screen time, and monitoring 4 boys' locations at all hours, even when I'm not in town. And then making sure I'm present at dinner, attentive to my family, all while a million other demands pull at me in every direction every minute of every day. Now, look, there's a danger in what she's saying here in terms of how it will be received. And I experience this often when I am talking about my YouTube woes or my content creators' stresses and stuff, is that a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, what do you want? Like us to play a violin or something, lady? Like, we've all got tough lives too. You think that your life is tough going to MAGA parties and shit and hanging out with RFK? You think that while raising kids, you think that's tough? What about fill in the blank of what so many moms have to deal with, right? And I'm not calling out Jessica here. Actually, what I want to say to you is I understand that feeling that, like, come on, lady, give me a break. You're an Instagram star or whatever, and you're living this fancy life. It's like, come on, give me a break. You want us to feel sorry for you? No, she doesn't. Let me put it this way. She does not. I know what she's feeling here because I felt it too. She does not want you to feel sorry for her. She wants you to understand, though, as a critical viewer, how fucking hard she tries to give you the best product possible, live under the constraints that she is living under. And so I think what she's trying to express here, it may come off as just a list of like whining, right? But I think what she's trying to express here is like, it is so hurtful to pour out all of this energy and blood, sweat, and tears that you don't even necessarily have left, because you've also been giving that to your children and your spouse and all of this other stuff in your life, to pour all of that out day after day after day, week after week, year after year, trying to give people interesting, meaningful, socially important content, and then to have people just so blatantly misunderstand you and resent you and try to depict you as some stupid, silly, crazy, mommy influencer who, like, I guess flashed her boobs and got into the White House that way or something, right? Like, what? I don't know, right? And so that's the kind of, that's the kind of attitude that she's talking about, that it does grind you down sometimes. I mean, I went off on someone on Instagram today. It was completely, you can still go look at it. It was a completely pointless exchange, and I felt ridiculous for it afterward, as I always do when I argue with critics. I always feel bad, but sometimes you do it if you're down, if you're already a little low, and they get you in the right moment. And I posted something, a reference to Marilyn Manson's album, and then Evan Rachel Wood. His album is titled One Assassination Under God, and it's a reference to the attempted cancellation and assassination, so to speak, of Manson by this Me Too hoax orchestrated by Evan Rachel Wood, right? You don't have to agree with that or buy all of that if you don't want to, but I covered it on my channel. And so I posted something about that, and I said, and please don't even bother telling me that you don't want to hear about Evan Rachel Wood, because I'll always get a few comments, people whining and saying, why do we have to keep talking about her? Move on. And so then, of course, I got the response to that saying, I don't want to hear about this, was somebody basically saying, of course, predictably, what I didn't want to hear. And so, I could have left that alone, but I ended up getting into like a multi-comment argument with this person, where I finally end the argument by screaming, go away! I'm not kidding. Like a just complete idiot child on the playground or something. But that's what this stuff can reduce you to. And so with the battering that Jessica Krauss got over that White House Epstein files stuff, that Epstein binder stuff, like I know she had to be feeling super, super low. And so if what she's saying is accurate, which I don't think there's any reason to think it wasn't, there were a number of guys, podcasters or social media guys who were giving her a hard time and misunderstanding her and stuff. So she's talking about how that really gets to her. Okay, continuing on. We're a half hour into this. I told you we're going to be a deep dive. After this, right after this, we're going to watch the 10-minute monologue by Candace Owens where she addresses Jessica Krauss. Then we're going to look at their Instagram sniping. Okay. So she's talking about all this stuff that she has to juggle and deal with. All the while, other demands pull at me in every direction, every minute, every day. A mother's list is endless. We know that. And yet my work and integrity are consistently berated and mocked by misinformed egos in media who I'm positive tackle and execute far less on a daily basis. At this point, aside from demeaning gender wars, the question isn't who is the most credible, but who do we like in the news these days? Amid the great media shakeup, that's become the new crux. It's not even about credibility. It's about connection, about trust. The media has fractured. Legacy outlets are dead. Cable news is deader. Try watching it without cringing. That's funny. The delivery is flat. The anchors robotic. Watching it in a hotel room feels like punishment. Which reminds me, Jake Tapper, you're the worst. I'll get to the anonymous remarks about you soon enough. Okay, I guess she's got some kind of expose on Jake Tapper coming or something. What finally pushed me over the edge was a clip from the Bulwark podcast, the one that triggered this rant. Okay, so I guess actually it would be helpful for me to. I wonder if I was going to say it would be helpful for me to play this clip. She's got a clip here. I wonder if this is actually okay. Well, let me read this paragraph and then we'll see. She said, what finally pushed me over the edge was a clip from the Bulwark podcast, the one that triggered this rant. I don't care what these men think of me, but their arrogance and like when you say I don't care what these men think of me, it's obvious like you do care what they think. But we all say that most of the time we mean it, except if we're in a really low mood, right? I don't care what these men think of me, but their arrogance is a perfect case study in how deeply sexist male-dominated media still is. In the clip, they mock me for being a lifestyle blogger turned civilian sleuth. Okay, there is a clip. We'll play it. A character to watch, as if I'm some kind of untamed spectacle who wormed her way in, a pampered influencer in over her head. No mention of the fact that my Instagram story slides pull 200 to 300 million views monthly, numbers that dwarf most network news broadcasts. No acknowledgement that my newsletter alone reaches 5 to 8 million readers. Okay, so let's play this clip. Again, when I use StreamYard and I play other media, sometimes there's a sound distortion, so you may need to turn this up or down.
Named Jessica Reed Krauss, who I think, put a pin in that. I think she's going to become like, this is one to
character
watch.
In the
so
new,
she's
okay.
Yes. And so she's called House in Habit on Instagram. And she kind of emerged. She was kind of like a lifestyle blogger in Orange County. And then she got really RFK pilled and then, kind of became part of his entourage and had kind of like a feud with Olivia Nuzzi over RFK and all this stuff. And so she got one. And now she's kind of like a citizen sleuth. But this sort of backfired because the influencers who weren't invited, like Laura Loomer, then start digging up things on the ones who were to prove that they're, deep state shills. And that's why we didn't get the real news. And they found this picture of the Krauss once wearing a free Ghislaine Maxwell shirt.
This is the House and Habit lady from Instagram?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to get my character straight. She was wearing a free Ghislaine shirt.
Yes. And so I don't know the situation where you ever think that's a good idea? She said at the time, she was like, look at my provocative shirt. Yes. And so I don't know the situation where you ever think that's a good idea. She said at the time, she was like, look at my provocative shirt, which it certainly is.
DC Drano was also there.
Yeah, DC Drano, Chad Prather, who were kind of like MAGA meme lords. This is kind of like the equivalent of like Carpe Donktum, if people remember him, kind of.
Sorry, y'all. I was going to say, I listened to this. I think, yeah, of course, it's insulting. They're making fun of her. Do I think that it's something that would like personally send me over the edge? No, but at the same time, you have to remember it's death by a thousand cuts, so to speak. And that she and these other influencers were getting a ton of shit from lots of people and lots on the internet, and all Twitter and everywhere, right? So and we're being really ridiculed and laughed at, and we're almost being described as like stupid collaborators, useful idiots or what have you. And if you're someone like Jessica Krauss, who has spent years and years building meticulously, I think, trying to build this brand as someone, who's outside the system and is not being duped by the system, right, or by the bureaucracy, then I could see that this would be particularly irritating. But at any rate, whether or not I agree with her or not, this is what she put out here, and saying that this was the thing that sent her over the edge. So then she says, in a world where viral views dictate influence, take note, my audience, 96% female, matters just as much, if not more, than the interchangeable male audiences these bros cater to. Their issue isn't content preference. Their issue is that they don't understand or care what women think, crave, or cling to when it comes to news and culture. So they dismiss it as trite. They don't view us as competitors. They see us as sporadic irritations. They'll mock me in the Maxwell t-shirt, but ignore the fact that I sat through that trial for 6 weeks and spent years tracing the Epstein web. Have any of them followed a trial in real time? Of course not, but they'll feign expertise on the files from behind a podcast mic, wrapped in the comfort of their own ignorance. And look, let me say, this is something else that I get where the anger is coming from here, because as someone who does similar work, much less successfully, obviously, and with much less of a following, but someone who does a lot of similar work, particularly in the Me Too realm, you at times can get so tired of talking to people who don't seem to acknowledge or recognize that you have, by the way they interact with you, that you have spent sometimes weeks or months or years on a subject. And there's a certain sort of like condescending talking down to that you get from people who say, what, you believe so-and-so is innocent, or you think that there's more to that situation, or what, and what you want to say, and acting. And let me give you an example. Let me give you an example of one. Oh, on the Jay-Z thing. I've spent now 2 months looking into the allegations against Jay-Z. And by the way, there's only one allegation. People think for some reason that he's got all these allegations and stuff against him, like Sean Combs does. There's only one allegation. And it has been not only retracted, but retracted in utter disgrace, because the claimant was so obviously lying and confused about misrepresenting the truth that her own attorney had the case dismissed with prejudice, which basically means that it can never be filed. The lawsuit can never be filed again. And now Jay-Z is suing that woman and the attorney representing her for defamation. Well, here's my point. I've been talking about this and covering this case, not so much in my videos, well, I've done a couple of them, but online on Twitter and Instagram. And one time somebody just burned me up. This lady just burned me up by saying to me, I think you need to realize that not all men are innocent here, and that and I think that you need to acknowledge that actually all of the evidence against Jay-Z that you're ignoring. This should not have even gotten a response from me, right? But at the point that I was feeling low or what have you, or irritated, in a bad mood, and it drove me nuts. And so, of course, I say to the woman, I've spent 2 months on this. I've been looking into this probably a total of 48 straight hours, maybe a week. I don't know, poring over trial documents, watching the interview with the accuser, that even interview, in fact, in which NBC, while they're interviewing her, they actually debunked her story because it was so ridiculous and completely unverifiable, or was verified actually as being a lie. She claimed she had this long, extensive conversation with the Madden brothers when, in fact, they were across country on a tour. That's just one example of the ludicrousness of her claims. Anyway, it just drove me nuts that this woman was talking to me like, oh, maybe you should actually look into the Jay-Z case before you just like pop off and say he's innocent. That kind of shit drives me nuts because I almost never, I have to say, pop off on anything, particularly Me Too stuff, without having done some investigation. That's why I still have nothing to say about the Tate situation, because I just don't care to look into it. So I'm not going to pop off about it, except to say that every time I try to watch a video by one of those guys, I'm so fucking annoyed I can't continue. But anyway, that's my judgment on the Tates. Okay, back to Jessica. And I know that she's making sweeping generalizations here that are hard to swallow. You know, I really try hard not to generalize about male content creators, although I know that she's talking about a particular type of what she terms podcast bro and people who have been critical of her and stuff. But, you know, she's saying a lot here. They don't understand. They don't get it like women do, blah, 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 blah. But, and so some of that, you know, it seems like a bit much, but then she has a legit point in that it is so ridiculous and painful and absurd that these people who have not spent nearly the time that she has investigating and doing at times real investigative work on the Epstein case, for instance, or some of these others, will talk down to her. Like, oh, she's just this crazy fruitcake out here who's trying to get some attention with her wacky Epstein views or whatever, you know? Then again, y'all, I know that's just part of the territory, right? Okay, then she says, even Ian Carroll, who I respect, went viral this month on Rogan. Went viral this month on Rogan by rehashing essentially everything Whitney Webb already reported in print in excruciating detail about Epstein and Maxwell's ties to Israeli intelligence. Yes, they were spies. We know it all thanks to Whitney's immaculate reporting condensed into a hearty 2-part volume. And yet Rogan sat there feigning shock over every detail Ian dropped, as if it were groundbreaking information. Now, here is something else that can really irk content creators, is that if we do a lot of work on a story that no one else has really done that kind of work on, or we see someone else doing that work, right? And then someone else comes along, maybe with a bigger name or whatever, and takes that work and we feel is presenting it as their own or as a new thing and getting all this credit for it, that can be really irritating. And that is something that I personally have had to come to terms with myself and just say, look, this is just part of the social media game. Other people are going to do this to me, and I am going to unknowingly at times do this to other people because I can't account for every bit of information that I get always, or remember to say, oh, you know, this thing that we learned from this in this person, and then this thing that we learned from this in this person, like you know, you just can't keep up with it or talk that way. So I try to give credit on the big things where I can, but I've just had to come to terms with the fact that that's just how it is. You know, this is the new media age. This is virality. These are the terms of the game. You do hard work and you put your stuff out there and you hope that you'll get recognized eventually for it. But that doesn't always happen. And so I get where Jessica is coming from. Again, I get this irritation here of seeing basically what she's saying is that in this case with Whitney Webb and in other cases, I think Jessica is saying you've got women doing really, really hard work on a story, and then a man just comes along and kind of presents it almost as his own, and then another guy, a podcast bro, will be like, oh dude, and really amplify it. Do I really think that's what's happening? I don't think personally it's a male female thing, but that is clearly the lens through which Jessica is interpreting these experiences, some of these experiences that she's had. And I haven't watched these programs by and large. I don't know about this. So again, I've got to plead ignorance, but I see the point that she's trying to make, right? She says, as a man, you can dissect the psyche of a serial killer all day long, but humanize a female co-conspirator, she's talking to Ghislaine Maxwell, humanize a female co-conspirator groomed for self-destruction, and you'll be ridiculed to no end if you're a woman. Tim Dillon wore the same shirt with the same slogan and a smile on stage twice because he's also on board with Maxwell as a scapegoat. No one batted an eye. In other words, she's saying he wore the same shirt on 2 different occasions, wore it on stage. He has the same feelings that I do or that she does about the Maxwell thing, right? But no one batted an eye. I also don't know who Tim Dillon is, but anyway. Their remarks, predictable as ever, are designed to undermine women like me, women who've emerged as independent journalists on our own terms, outside the structures they've gatekept. The problem is most of these men are lazy. I mean, Jessica's not, she's not holding back in the in the critique here. So I just have to assume, and Jessica, if you're watching this, I just have to assume that you knew then that this was going to make some waves and you were going to get some clapping back from some people, because some of this is clearly written in a way where you're ripping these people up and you're not mincing words. Some of these people, and she hasn't even gotten to Candace Owens yet here, but these critiques here of these male podcasters. You asked me again personally, Colonel Kurtz, is this my experience? I have not had these negative experiences working with men or being misrepresented by them. I don't think it's a gender thing. Now, in general, I have had experiences being misrepresented, but in my experience, it's just as likely to be a woman doing it. Actually, probably more often for me than a man. But again, I'm not Jessica. This is what she's saying. Okay, let's wrap this part up. She says, most of these men are lazy, not curious in the way that transcends tired talking points. Women in my text chats don't relate to this. Women don't speak like Joe Rogan or Tim Pool. Well, I'll agree with that one. We don't generally speak like Joe Rogan or Tim Pool. Most women I know don't care what a sports commentator or a stand-up comedian thinks about anything. We want well, I don't know if that's true. We want different things: drama, conflict, obsessive detail, deep dives into the absurd and the profound, fashion, zodiac interpretations. Well, I don't really need the zodiac interpretation. No, I know what she's saying. Heartbreak, coded symbols, ghost stories, family feuds and mental breakdowns, toxic love stories, glamour, grit, tales of harrowing fate, and unexpected revival. We do not care about long-winded rants on hot wing reviews and neocon finger pointing. Again, y'all, I mean, look, she said it was going to be a rant, right? And that's what I keep going back to. She said in the opening lines, basically, this is going to be a rant of feminist rage. I'm feeling defensive, I mean, so I take this as contextually as how it was intended. But, she's definitely not saying things that she shouldn't expect will get some kind of a response, right? She says, last week on his live radio show, Glenn Beck read my scoop on Barack and Jen. I guess that Barack Obama and Jennifer Aniston may be dating. And by the way, y'all, I've said this before, but I had a friend several years ago, kind of lost touch with him now, but he's a friend of my guys several years ago, Secret Service guy. And he worked in Washington, and he knew all the agents who were on the different major security details and everything. And he said that it was common knowledge among the agents. Now, this was several years ago. It was common knowledge among the agents that the Obama's marriage had become a sham because they didn't spend a single night under the same roof. That's what he said was the word through the Secret Service gossip chain about the Obama marriage, which again, I don't care, except I think, it's sad, but never been invested in their marriage story one way or the other. But by the way, that was several years ago when people weren't even talking about marriage problems. And so I think that's interesting. I asked him what he had heard about the Trump marriage, and he said no comment. So all right. So continuing on here, we're almost done with the essay. She said, last week on his live radio show, Glenn Beck read my scoop on Barack and Jen. He did it with a semi-satirizing tone just to point out how beneath him gossip is, as if he doesn't know that everyone loves gossip, the great human equalizer. I see it as art. Gossip at its peak. Okay, now I'm going to skip over this part, although it's very well written and I'm sure interesting to a number of people, but it's a little bit of a detour from what we're trying to talk about, okay? Okay, so she says, so many talking heads have shifted course by leaning harder into gossip and scandal, and other outlets notoriously defined by it are now mirroring my signature. Okay, this is where we start to get into what Candace Owens was upset about, okay? And other outlets notoriously defined by it are now mirroring my signature stylistic preferences outright. Years ago, I started pairing lowbrow clips about culture with Mozart symphonies. Back then, it was a unique concoction that humored me. Now that pairing is used everywhere, most frequently by Daily Mail to hook scrolling interest. Well, I don't know about the Daily Mail thing. I've not seen that pairing used, but again, she says she has, then she has. I'm just not, people would be surprised. I'm not nearly as plugged into all the stuff happening online, people's videos, as you would think. She says, yet, aside from the criminally confident podcast dude mentality, brain rot for those of us craving something compelling, Even the big media personalities seem to be losing their grip lately. Now, I just have to say too, to Jessica, if you use the terms like brain rot, then again, you can't be surprised if you're going to rile some people up. I know she's not talking about Candace Owens here. She's talking about the podcast dudes, but yeah, again, definitely venting. She says, Tucker Carlson is on a weird bender. Have you noticed? Veering from recounting a demonic attack in his sleep, that was actually very weird, to wishing Andrew Tate well on a podcast. Yeah, Tucker Carlson, he does claim that he was attacked by a demon. I mean, like physically actually attacked, but who am I to say? I'm hoping that the ghost of Elvis will come and attack me in my sleep. Okay. Veering from recounting a demonic attack in his sleep to wishing Andrew Tate well on a podcast while pushing increasingly blatant Iranian propaganda. He's hard to take seriously these days, and I say this as a fan. Okay, here's Candace. Candace Owens, too, seems to be floundering. Now, Jessica, you use the term floundering. That's a really negative term, because I could think of other terms that would be less harsh. Floundering is, I would say, about as insulting as you can get for someone of great intelligence or accomplishment, right? That's just because when you say someone's floundering, you're basically saying like a fish, like flopping about, like they don't know what they're doing. They have no idea. They just go from thing to thing, trying to figure out what's going to work, and their head's, kind of off, and they're like, that's floundering. So if that's how you're starting with Candace Owens, I can see how she got upset. Says Candace Owens, too, seems to be floundering, re-examining Me Too through the Weinstein lens as if she just discovered politicized trials. I tried to watch, but I had to turn it off. Nothing will make me tune into Harvey again. I lived through that trial. No one cared then when it was actually happening, because Hollywood is seated by perversities and morally handicapped people in power. This isn't news. It's the status quo, always has been. The final take was that he was as gross as the victims who showed up to testify after decades of seeking him out in hotel rooms to pitch a script in bathrobes next to champagne buckets at midnight. Now, she says several things in here I just want to briefly unpack a bit. I think what her underlying issues are, if we're looking into this, she says that she lived through that trial and no one cared then. So, and then she'd also said that she was annoyed, basically indicate that she was annoyed that Candace is re-examining Me Too through the Weinstein lens as if she just discovered politicized trials. So I think that the feeling here basically that she's feeling is, I spent all of this time at the Weinstein trials and talking to the accusers and digging through all of this stuff, blood, sweat, and tears. And I reported on it then. People didn't really seem to, by and large, care about the nuances or whatever. It was basically, what we kind of all came to was that this was a really gross human being. And yeah, his victims often didn't behave in a great way either. And so I think that her feeling here is like Candace Owens then, and I'm not validating or justifying it, but the feeling here is that, after Jessica and people like her have done all of this work, then Candace sort of breezes in and is like, oh, I've been talking to Harvey in jail and he tells me all this and I looked into it and look, it's actually like this. And I discovered that. Wow. Now I'm not saying that that's how Candace comes across at all, because I have been personally, I have to say, I've been really impressed as someone who was not at all impressed with the Macron story or with her coverage of it. And I think there's said this before, a lot of smoke and mirrors and whatever, but I feel like the Weinstein series has been really compelling and really ballsy. And so this feeling would not be something that I would agree with, but then I also understand her frustration. I can empathize with the frustration here. Even if I think that, I mean, again, you have to, in this business, I think that you have to come to terms with the fact that these things are going to be rehashed by different people, and you're not always going to get the credit traced back to you, right? And that's a hard pill to swallow at times, especially if you think you're getting berated by people for your mistakes or whatever. But like, I just think, so do I think this critique is fair? I don't, but there you are. So she says, Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens, two of the most prominent women in male-dominated media, are clearly pivoting. Whether consciously or not, they're shifting toward the one thing that reliably pulls in the most valuable audience in media, women. For years, both built brands that catered mostly to conservative men. Kelly as the sharp-tongued Fox News anchor who sparred with Trump, Owens as the firebrand conservative unafraid to take on feminism. But now their focus is changing. Both are leaning into narratives that resonate with women, celebrity scandals, political gossip, interpersonal drama. They're drifting from rigid ideological debate and into the storytelling that fuels female-driven media. Why? Because while male listeners may be louder, women dictate the market. Women are the most engaged, the most loyal, the most lucrative audience in media. Advertisers know this. Networks know this. Even the most hardened political commentators are starting to realize it. Men in media are good at tricking us into thinking they own the grip on cultural commentary. They can repackage old information and be called brilliant. Women can break new ground and be mocked. The podcast bros, the legacy anchors, the media fraternity, they aren't gatekeepers of truth. They're gatekeepers of each other. And most of them don't care about accuracy, influence, or impact. Only that a woman who built her own empire is sitting at the same table, whether they invited her or not. She kind of loses me there with, frankly, I don't think these gendered generalizations are legit, although I could totally see the argument that at times some of these, as she puts it, podcast bros could maybe be a bit limiting or minimizing in their view, or dismissive in their view of some of these women. But the thing is, and what she's talking about here is that, and she's about to get into, is that a number of them, though, or she's mentioned this here, a number of them, though, have an appreciation for Candace Owens. I don't think she talks about it right here, actually. I think that was Candace who talked about that. Okay. So anyway, y'all, that's the article. Sorry. That's the essay. And so I think what happened, as Candace Owens tells it, and I'll let her tell the story, is that some people notified her that she was in this article and that Jessica seemed to have an issue with her, some issues. And so Candace read it and she responded. So I'm going to now play her entire response to this, Candace's monologue, and then we'll look at the some of the sniping that's gone on between these two online. But anyway, that is my take, kind of nuanced take there on Jessica's essay. Some things I empathize with, others are kind of a head scratcher, like, huh? But that's it. There it is. So let me bring up the next one. So I actually screen recorded and clipped this segment where Candace Owens is talking about Jessica Krauss. So this is actually it's a YouTube video that I made, and that's why the resolution looks a little bit bad. It's a lo-fi video. But anyway, I'm going to play this, and I'm going to, while you watch it, I'm going to go and, I don't know, get a coffee or something. It's gonna be about 10 minutes. So everybody watch this. And then when we come back, I'll kind of go through it just a bit, break down a few things, and then we will look at the Instagram stuff that's been posted since then. Okay. Oh, you don't have it. Just a minute.
Public. And I can do that also now. Public. And I can.
All right. There we go.
Do that also now because I work for myself and my husband, and I don't have to run these things through anyone. But so I don't know if you follow, House and Habit has been a Substack, a mom blogger, so to speak. People really love her. I've liked her stuff. I followed House and Habit. Her real name is Jessica Reed Krauss. And I have had a very nice relationship with her in the background. I think I literally did an entire podcast with her in January. And it was super productive. We were talking about how moms are kind of entering the space and how the media is changing. You can literally go listen to how friendly and productive and kind this was. And then afterwards, my PR person was like, she'd like to do more with you. And I was like, great, I would love that. That would be amazing because, moms kind of coming together and having all these independent voices is a good thing. So imagine my surprise. This is the exact order of events of what happened. My PR person says, as I'm doing the Harvey series, House and Habit, Jessica Reed reached out, and she knows Jessica Mann, who is one of the women who put Harvey Weinstein in prison, and that Jessica Mann wanted to reach out to you via her. I'm like, okay, great. That sounds excellent, because I would obviously, if she wanted to talk about the case from her side, I have obviously told people my opinion about her. I have read her emails. We are not done looking at her emails. I believe that Harvey Weinstein was wrongly convicted of rape, and he was convicted of rape for 3 years by this person, okay? By Jessica Mann. So obviously I'm like, great, definitely go out. Like, she's in LA, go see her. He gets there, and quite to his surprise, House and Habit tells him that somebody beneath her on her Substack is working on a hit piece on me. I'm like, what? Not even just me, my husband, which is even crazier, because what does my husband do other than involve himself like entirely with the Catholic Church? And the angle that they're taking, that her editor or writer is taking, is like trying to like pretend there's something more between my husband and Andrew Tate, which just happens to be the narrative that everyone has been taking over the last week in attacks against me, Tucker, and Andrew Tate. Everyone's been doing it at the same time. It is so clearly not organic to me. But I just said to him what I always say: let her run it, because it's a lie, and lies just never land. And in the end, they do nothing but destroy your own reputation. And my husband maybe hung out with Andrew Tate 5 times before he and I met. I have seen Andrew Tate 4 times in my life. I think 1, 2, 3 of them you have all seen because they've been on camera. And 1 time I could say off camera. Okay, maybe twice off camera, maybe 5 times. We're talking about 9 times in total, and trying to pretend or create a conspiracy there is just nonsense. I just don't care. I'm too pregnant. I said, let her run the piece. I don't care. I have no rebuttal. I don't care, you know? Anyways, she ended up instead writing what is remarkably to me, and I don't know if this is just like a woman thing, but just such a petty piece in a newsletter, taking a stab at me and Megyn Kelly, and essentially literally spelling out that we're trying to be her, pretending that us conservatives getting into the Baldoni case is a brand flip. And it's the exact opposite. Conservatives were the first ones who said that the Me Too movement had issues. Okay. We were first. If you go back, we were the first ones who said we don't believe in the Me Too movement, and that we cannot just accept a woman's allegations at face value. And for that reason, I have defended men over and over again and insisted that people actually read through the court transcripts and not just believe in the hype of what some woman is saying. And then the Amber Heard case happened. And I think a lot of people who would have hashtag Me Too kind of came to their senses and realized, wait a minute, we can't just rely on emotions. We have to rely on the facts. I have been investigating things the BLM thing was a deep investigation where I was getting into the records of Patrisse Cullors and the founders and saying, where is this money going? I did the Making a Murderer, a series convicting a murderer, to show that Netflix wrongly made people believe that Stephen Avery was innocent when he was not innocent. I did the Kamala Chronicles. And what she doesn't mention in this newsletter is that the biggest thing I've done this year has actually not been Justin Baldoni, but rather Becoming Brigitte has gotten way more, many millions of views. So I'm just going, what is this line of attack about? I mean, we should realize, this is what she wrote in her newsletter, by the way. She wrote, so many talking heads have shifted course, okay, by leaning harder into gossip and scandal. And other outlets notoriously defined by it are now mirroring my signature stylistic preferences outright. Years ago, I started pairing lowbrow clips about culture with Mozart's symphonies. Back then, it was a unique concoction that humored me. Now that pairing is used everywhere, most frequently by the Daily Mail to hook scrolling interests. Like, it's a newsletter to say that everybody is copying me. I can guarantee you, I did not know anything about your style, the things that you covered, what you were writing about. I don't understand why this random attack came on me and Megyn Kelly. It just reads like women unable to play in a sandbox with one another. And that is just, I am so tired of that. I am 35 years old. I have my 4th child on the way. I promise you, my interest in this is because I have been interested in every Me Too case since it has come out. I covered the Amber Heard case extensively. If you didn't watch that, that's fine. I was with the Daily Wire. Maybe they didn't promoted enough, who knows? But to pretend that conservatives just got into Me Too court cases is just pointedly ridiculous. Or to pretend that we got interested in it because we wanted to copy you, that reads like a massive insecurity. And I think it's just embarrassing, truly, because there was no reason to do it. It's just like a perfect act of violence. And I wanted to show this when weighed against how men who have been watching my series have just been sort of celebrating it and being like, these different series are very interesting and super compelling, and here's why. So this is Joe Rogan speaking about 2 series that I'm working on right now, the biggest podcaster in the world. And no, he's not about to say she's copying my style. Take a listen.
The JFK stuff kind of just confirmed what kind of they label conspiracy theorists. Like, yeah, we've said it was CIA, Mossad.
It's going to take a
Mafia.
while for the nerds to really go through it. And
Candace Owens
out.
been through it. I bet.
Has she been through it?
I would assume.
She's too busy with the Macron thing. I watched 2 hours of that today.
Me too. Have you seen her?
Macron's a man. Yeah, Bridget Macron's a man.
She got you.
Yeah, she got me. Candace got me. She got me hook, line, sinker.
Dude,
I was eating breakfast today.
Yeah, I do the same shit.
I was eating elk steaks, watching Candace Owens on my YouTube.
I love her. Did you
I was
see?
like, this is crazy. This is crazy.
Have you dived into her Harvey Weinstein?
I watched the first episode of that.
Bro,
Crazy. It's crazy. So I can't believe I'm on Harvey Weinstein's side.
Right?
Crazy. Like, I thought he was like guilty of like heinous crimes. And then you listen to it and you're like, wait, what? What is going on?
When they go through the actual affidavit, like what the girls accuse him for, you're like, what?
Yeah. So the
didn't have
emails back
testicles.
and forth with the girl. Yeah, she was talking about his testicles. He doesn't have them.
And I would also now like to make you guys aware, because this is something that she's not sharing, because people then emailed me and told me that she's intentionally trying to get people not to watch the Harvey series. She has a relationship with Jessica Mann. And so it's very disingenuous to speak about that case and to say, oh, I couldn't be interested in this again. I covered it extensively. And not to also tell your audiences, Jessica, read Krauss, that you lived with Jessica Mann throughout the trial. You lived with her for a couple of weeks throughout the trial. You guys are still friends. You follow her on Instagram. You're repping her to some capacity by reaching out to me. This is Jessica Mann's, the correct Jessica Mann's Instagram. And she follows House and Habit, and House and Habit follows her. And they have a relationship. So it is not authentic, moms, that she is telling you not to get into this series or pretending that she's too bored and couldn't care about it. To me, it feels like she's doing PR for somebody that she has a personal relationship with. And I think it's crappy. I think it's dishonest. And it is especially crappy when you have someone who's done nothing but support you. I swear it was last week when I was promoting something that House and Habit did, and only discovered that she's like planning an attack on me and my husband for absolutely no reason other than the fact that it's Tuesday. And I don't trust that she also went after Tucker Carlson in the same week that everybody is going after Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. And I just wonder what specifically is motivating that, or who specifically is motivating that. Is she being paid by someone to do that, to go after, because she tries to make it sound like Tucker's being funded by the Middle East and, Candace Owens is trying to change up her brand. Absolutely no one who has watched my stuff thinks that I'm trying to change my brand. I do think for the first time we have fractured trust in the mainstream media, and people that weren't normally listening to me because they thought that I was just some like Trump, worshiping person who hates Black people, which is crazy. But they did a very good job of creating, the media did a very good job of creating that caricature of me. And it usually just takes one thing that you have in common with someone or something that you're interested in. And if you listen to them by yourself and you don't listen to them through the lens of the mainstream media, you go, oh, actually, that wasn't what I was expecting. I kind of believed the mainstream media about this person, and now I don't. And Andrew Schultz, another person who has credited my work, who also happens to be a guy, guys seem to be a lot friendlier, said the same thing. He said the exact same thing on Theo Von's podcast recently. Here's what he had to say.
The Candace Baldoni stuff, I don't know if you were following that at all.
I didn't get into that. I don't get into a lot of the celebrity lore.
The only reason why it's interesting to me is that, like Candace has like been positioned in a way on the internet, right? Like, and she existed there and people had her opinions on her, and like everybody was stuck. They're like, that's this girl and bad. No, we don't listen to her at all. And she started talking about that Baldoni Blake Lively thing. And even my wife was hitting me like, have you heard this Candace Owens girl talking about? I mean, she just exposes the whole thing. Like, it's crazy how like social utility frames how people see you. So you could be a bad guy, and then you start talking in depth about something that people care about. And then all of a sudden, while you're talking about that, you're a good guy.
Right.
You're a hero.
That's interesting.
Like, what does that say about us?
I feel like that's a much more thoughtful analysis on what happens. Like, what does it actually say about us that we are unwilling to listen to somebody until we find something that we agree with them on? But again, that's a male analysis. I feel like women just cannot play in the sandpit together. And again, I promise you, I was not. I didn't even know what your style was. I am sorry that you felt that way, Jessica. And
I'm not
I bid
responding.
you tons of
not-
luck in the
not holy
future. But
shit,
I'm going to
it's
continue to
just-
cover this case because I'm just interested.
Holy shit. I'm not saying holy shit about what Candace is saying here, but I'm just checking my Instagram and I'm looking at what has been happening since since I started this stream. And man, Candace Owens and Jessica are going at it. They're publishing, or at least Candace is publishing DMs. I haven't even looked at Jessica's page she said Jessica's in there. Whoa. So I mean, I can't disagree with anything that Candace is saying here. Can y'all? I mean, what I've tried to give you in talking through Jessica's essay is some background on why she was feeling the way she was feeling and why Jessica was so stressed out and upset, and explaining, basically not justifying, but explaining why she went on that rant and maybe what some of her resentment or irritation toward Candace is. But from Candace's perspective and from an objective perspective, I mean, don't y'all think that what she said here is pretty compelling? And I think that and look, where it gets a little thorny for me too is that it seems like some of the resentment that Jessica was expressing in her essay, yes, there was focused. Well, the resentment in Jessica's essay toward Candace Owens was focused on Candace coming in and doing what she's done with the Weinstein case. And then also this idea that Candace has switched lanes. Candace and Megyn Kelly have switched lanes over into more celebrity gossip or women's oriented stuff, which is what House and Habit says. Basically, she was one of the pioneers in, so to speak. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't justify where Jessica is coming or what Jessica is saying on this, because I think that I understand and empathize with a number of the feelings that she expresses in that essay about how she was mistreated by people or got a lot of shit for what happened at the White House. And I empathize with that. I empathize, as I told you, with some of the frustrations that she expresses about being a content creator and how at times you feel exhausted or misunderstood and people deliberately misrepresent you and you don't get, and then she claims that I think where a lot of it breaks down for me though is I don't recognize the male biases that Jessica is expressing in her essay, because I have worked on a much smaller level, yes, but I have worked now in this realm of media, and I've just never experienced what I perceive as any kind of like gender-based dismissive attitude or discriminatory attitude, discrimination or anything like that. And I think maybe what I would say to Jessica on this is, are you sure that this was a gender thing, a gender-based thing, all the criticism that you got? Or was this criticism, I know she mentioned the Tim Dillon episode, but I think that a lot of the guys who participated in that White House Epstein thing, I think that they were pilloried a lot. At least I saw it on Twitter. So I don't know that the guys who participated in that actually did get let off the hook. And I just don't exactly understand where the resentment toward men that is so prevalent in her essay comes from. I know she had that particular quote from the Bulwark podcast where they were making fun of her a little, but people just make fun of people all the time anyway. I mean, look, y'all, I'm on Twitter and I am Twitter friends with people like Ethan Ralph and Nick Rekieta, and all that I see all day with those guys is them trash Kino Casino and what's the farms people that's like everyone talks shit about because they're like big internet villains, Kiwi Farms and all that. Like I see all of these like people discussed online, and it just seems like there is a certain part of the internet that is just a nonstop feud shit show with people just constantly harassing the fuck out of each other and doing it as a kind of a spectacle, as a kind of a wrestling event almost, as I think Ethan Ralph has put it to me at times. And so I look at stuff like that and I'm like, it's just, this is just how the internet is. And I have to say personally that most of the shit that I have gotten from people has been from women. Most of my persecutors in the online or social media realm, I feel like, or most of the people who have misrepresented me have actually been women. So to Jessica, I have so much empathy for your perspective, what you feel like what you've been through with people giving you a lot of shit for that White House mishap and stuff. But I just don't personally share the perspective about it being a gendered thing. I could be wrong. And then to me, it also doesn't make sense. Then, you're saying that Candace Owens and Megyn Kelly are making the switch to a more woman-centric celebrity focus, but then you also say that you're saying that, but then Candace also, I guess, shows us where a lot of men, a lot of these bro podcasters actually really appreciate Candace Owens's work. So how can it be that Joe Rogan or some of these guys can sit around and talk, some of these bro podcasters can sit around and talk about how awesome Candace Owens is, and yet at the same time we're supposed to understand that they have a bias against female influencers and podcasters who talk about gossipy celebrity stuff? Like, that doesn't make sense, it seems like. And so I think that's one of the reasons why Candace Owens included these video clips of some of these bro podcasters like Joe Rogan saying nice things about her, is to say, no, it's not a gender thing. A ton of men like me. And maybe, who knows, that could be where some of the resentment comes from too. So I guess that's really all I have to say on that. I want to look at, because I see things are getting crazy, crazy intense online. And so I want to look at that and talk about it. But y'all tell me, am I wrong? Am I being, like, I have no intention, have absolutely no intention of being hard on Jessica. I totally empathize as a female YouTuber with a number of the things that she's saying about being spread thin and being misunderstood and misrepresented, and people give you a hard time and they don't understand, or you put all of this work into shit and then you feel like at times other people take credit for it. But I just don't see it as a gender thing. And I don't see where Candace Owens in the Weinstein stuff, like, what was she supposed to do? Was Candace Owens, when Harvey Weinstein called, was Candace Owens supposed to say, no, I'm not going to talk to Harvey Weinstein because someone else has already covered this? I mean, that just doesn't make sense. And so for Jessica to be upset with Candace Owens over her Harvey Weinstein coverage, I would say to Jessica, can you be more specific about what it is that you actually think is improper that Candace Owens has done? Because it seems like all Candace Owens has done is expose really significant problematic inconsistencies on the part of Harvey Weinstein's accusers that would at the very least throw their claims into question. And so what part of that is offensive or is wrong, Jessica? I understand the frustration that one has done all of this work, and when you say nobody noticed, nobody was paying attention, I mean, that happens, but people are noticing now, and that's why you're getting to do such great coverage at the White House and stuff. And so I would just say that what I try to tell myself is, as hard as this game can be, it's good to remember and always be focused on the good stuff, the good aspects of it, because there's certainly always frustrations that'll wear you down. If you get too focused on those, and it's happened to me at times, then you kind of just like, it'll make you crazy. But anyway, okay, enough of my pontificating. So what do y'all think? I want to read through some comments here. First of all, do you see someone as being more in the right or the wrong? Am I not understanding? Am I not seeing the light on some of what Jessica's saying? Do you think there is some kind of a gendered bias in the way that some of these podcast guys think about or receive female influencers, podcasters, their work. What do you think about that? I just don't watch enough YouTube. I know, I'll tell you this. I have gone on Ethan Ralph's show, and by the way, every time this gets mentioned, people are like, "Oh my God, you know, look at whatever." I like to remind people that I am like Jesus. I go into the homes and houses of the scoundrels, just like he did. All right, so people gave Jesus a hard time for entering the homes of scoundrels too. They did though. So I don't have a problem with it. And Ethan Ralph he's never given me any problems, any issues. But here's my point. That is, I would think going on the Ethan Ralph show is more or less as rough an arena as you can get in terms of internet craziness, you know? I had people warning me going on that show that I might get swatted or whatever. And yet my experience with that and with going on a lot of men's shows is that I get total respect. I've never gone on a guy's show, YouTube channel, where I have not been respected. And so, again, as a woman, I just have to wonder kind of what she's getting at here. But also, I don't watch enough YouTube and I don't listen to enough podcasts to know. So y'all tell me, is there this sexism that I'm not aware of in podcast? I'm going to go through we're just going to go to the bottom and we'll go. Okay. We're just going to start going through some of these. Cecilia, I mean. But the pauses are insane. And what is she reading? What are you talking about? See, this is one of those things. You know what? I totally now understand why Jessica Krauss lost her mind, because when you put all his work into something and then you have something fucking crazy, what the fuck are you talking about, Cecilia? I thought, hey, let's hear what she says because I'm home, but the pauses are insane. And what is she reading? What am I reading, Cecilia? I said what I was reading. I said it again and again. I'm reading Jessica Krauss's essay, and I was trying to give you some background and a little commentary because guess what the fuck? It's a live stream, and people come here to listen to me fucking talk. Why don't you go somewhere else? See? So this demonstrates to you how someone just with one viewer comment can completely lose their fucking mind and spout all kinds of craziness. All right, keep going. She came here looking for Candace, if I'm understanding. She came here looking for Candace, and she found someone losing their mind. All right, any of y'all have comments? No comments, just complaints here. Oh man, Cecilia, I tell you what, if you go to Candace Owens' YouTube channel, you will see that she has archived her live stream from today. And if you go about midway into that live stream, then you can get the straight shit without me breaking in. No, but I had it there. I played it for 10 minutes. You just didn't like the lead up then. You just thought that you were getting the straight dope of Candace. You were not going to have to sit through Jessica Krauss's essay and me pontificating about it. Does anyone have actual... Fuck you, Cecilia! No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Does anyone have any actual comments? Oh man, Elsie says, Elise says, I have never heard of Krauss, Jessica Krauss, and came about 20 minutes ago while you were reading. And I think Krauss is a whiner that is blaming all her woes on men. Well, and again, like, I consider her a friend, and I wanted to open this stream as I did by talking about all of the ways over the years that she has shown a great deal of courage and insight. And I love her blog. Her Instagram, House and Habit, it is one of the few things that I read regularly. But all that having been said, that disclaimer, everything, that is definitely how it comes off. And that's the thing that I think Jessica needs to understand. And if Jessica, if you see this, or if you see a snippet of it, or if somebody goes back to you and reports, I mean, I tagged Jessica. So I posted the link to this online on my Instagram to this program. And I tagged both Candace Owens and Jessica. And I don't have any illusions that they're going to watch because they're currently sniping at each other on Instagram. They're currently waging a war on Instagram. But if they do see this, Jessica, if you do see this, I mean, I think that that's the takeaway here, is that it doesn't really matter what I think, or ultimately what is objective truth or not, or what you're trying to get across. This is going to be the perception is of that essay, is that it comes across as whiny, and it comes across as blaming men, and for again, things that I don't recognize that I've encountered. But again, who knows? Okay. Penny Wrinkle says, I watched The Colonel because she's kicking, has genuine passion for the subject, and wants truths exposed. She's genuine, which matters to me. Penny, you're just trying to make me calm down, aren't you? No, that's very sweet. Y'all don't have to keep saying nice things. Y'all are so sweet, but I'm okay. I was partly sort of letting myself go there to make a point about how on edge sometimes we can feel with this stuff, and it's hard to believe that one comment could send one over the edge. But this is what I want people to understand: is Jessica was getting shit from everywhere for like weeks, because people on the right were upset about this White House Epstein stunt as it was perceived. People on the left were pillaring them for it, and everyone in between. And it was something that even I was like, oh, that, that's kind of cringe and everything, how that came out. And then you've got someone like Jessica, who has been working so hard on the Epstein story when it wasn't cool, and when there weren't many people on it, and has really been lobbying profoundly for the release of the Epstein files. And she's basically in some ways sort of tricked or co-opted or whatever into this what turned out to not be a real release of Epstein files, right? It was kind of a stunt. And so on top of that, she's having to deal with looking stupid, and she's having to deal with all of this shit that she's getting. And it went on for a while. I mean, it's still going on. And I have to say that she is correct, that there were a lot of guys that I saw online that were definitely throwing the worst criticisms out there and the worst punches. But it seemed to me that they weren't just focusing on the females or on Jessica. Like, I saw a lot of influencers across the board getting shit for it. So again, that's where I would come in and differ on that. And again, with the Candace Owens stuff, like, what was she supposed to do? Not cover Weinstein, not take his call, not point out or explore these profound problems that had not been widely known or disseminated, that his accusers had, So anyway, okay, let's see what is going on Instagram. I am not completely up to date with things. So what I did was I made a video before I went on, an hour and a half ago. I made a video of Candace Owens's post. She's since posted a lot more stuff. So we'll watch this video, and then I'm just going to go through and tell you, show you on my phone maybe some of the stuff that she's posting. All right, so let's see here. And we'll go through Jessica Krauss's too, what she's posting, because they are really, you can look yourself, they are kind of at war online right now. Okay. So this is from Candace Owens. Now, there's one part in this where she's calling someone, Candace is on screen calling someone low IQ. That is Blake Lively comment. Don't be confused. She was not calling Jessica low IQ. So the low IQ comments, that's where she's on the TV screen. You'll see it. That's Blake Lively. But okay, the rest, and then we'll go through the other stuff
today on the show. Also, I received all of your emails about House and Habit randomly taking a stab at me. I was so nice to her. Everything was fine. This is just like women. I don't know why we just can't play in the sandbox with each other, especially when weighed against the fact that I'm also being tagged in like Joe Rogan and Theo Von saying such nice things about me and all of the research I've done recently. So I'm going to respond to that because I just think it was just really uncalled for more than anything else. Obviously, this is why women just can't have nice things, I think. But beyond that, we'll jump back into the Ryan Reynolds thing that I've tried to get to on Monday before I almost died.
Okay. Oh, wait a second. You can't really see that. Can you make it bigger? Just a second. I'll just read it to you then. Sorry, it's not I should just go through their fucking Instagrams. Never mind. Never mind. I'm sorry. Just a second. I'm going to go full screen and we're just going to go through while I sit here. We're just going to go through this. That was, so Candace has several videos like that on there where she's talking, and I'll just play them from here. So actually, let's start with Jessica and her Instagram, and then we'll go to Candace's. Oh man, they're like sharing DMs and all kinds of stuff. I don't know if I should even go back and forth. Maybe I'll go through like half of Jessica's and then half of Candace's. So kind of like alternating. I don't know. Okay. So this is the first thing we get 8 hours ago. This is from House and Habit on Instagram. And it reads, hold on, let me bring the screen up a little bit. We're doing high-tech operation here. Dude, you want to know another comment that set me off was when someone complained about how disorganized my streams are. And what's funny is it was a stream where I had actually taken all of this time to get all of my clips like lined up and ready in a row. So it was actually more organized than my streams typically are. And she was like, I've watched, it's one of you out there probably. I've watched you for a long time. And I think the reason why it's taken you so long in caps, so long to reach 100,000 people is because you are so disorganized. Okay. She says, I guess this is a Jessica Krauss. I guess Candace Owens is upset and trashing me in stories right now. That is from 8 hours ago. Then right after that, she posts this. It's a picture of her next to an Obama picture. And she says, I can't look, meaning I can't look at Candace's stories. I'm out of office for the afternoon. Uh-oh. Then she writes, all I will say for now is that for a woman who bashes people on the daily, ruthlessly, it's weird she can't handle the slightest criticism coming from someone who typically agrees with and supports her. I think it's for clicks, nonstop arguments. Again, I'm not commenting here. I'm just gonna roll through these. Then Jessica reposts the essay that I just read to you. That, oh my God, I stopped so many times. There were so many pauses. I'm so sorry, Cecilia. I'm sorry, Cecilia. Anyway, sorry. Cecilia probably hated that pause. Cecilia, this is for you. Okay. Then we've got this picture, I guess, from the White House, and then Trump's on the screen. So that's not necessarily aimed at Candace. Okay. Yeah, it's just some White House pictures. Okay. And then 5 hours ago, she posts this. No, Candace, I'm not a victim. I'm at the White House. I'll respond when I'm not shadowing the president. LOL, thank you. Okay, and then, there's this lovely, apropos of nothing, but there's this lovely painting of Bill Clinton. Ooh. I said the other day that Bill Clinton was one of the guys who had been Me Too'd or attempted Me Too'd that I thought was guilty, and that surprised a lot of people. And they said guilty of what or whatever. It's a long story, but I wasn't even referring to I was not referring to the Lewinsky thing. But anyway, it's a whole other long story. I just lost my place. Uh-oh. And some of that disorganization she was talking about. Okay. So more White House pictures. Oh, okay. So, okay, now I'm going to go to, this is a good breaking point because now she's about to start sharing DMs. I'm going to go to Candace Owens's site. You just saw that video, so I'm not going to replay that. That was the first thing that Candace Owens posted, like after her show several hours ago. So let's go over the other stuff. Okay. Okay. So then she says, after that little speech that you heard earlier, Candace says, it's hard to read, so I'm just going to show it to you and then read it. She says, for reference, this was totally unnecessary House and Habit. Oh, she has, so it's a picture of the newsletter, the article that I read to you earlier. And she's saying this was totally unnecessary. This isn't news. It's just catty nonsense. Women just need to be better than this. Candace Owens says. That was 10 hours ago. And then 10 hours ago, she says I guess Candace Owens started tweeting before. I don't know who started tweeting first or started Instagramming first. Okay. She said then, let me get this better. She said she also went after Tucker Carlson in the same newsletter, which makes me highly suspicious. More on that later. I probably in a minute should give you some background on some persecution that Candace Owens has been experiencing. And that's a whole other thing you might have heard with a number of conservatives, going back to honestly her issues with the Daily Wire and the topic of like Israel. And I don't even want to get into all of it, but let me just say, since I gave some background or context on what Jessica Krauss has been going through recently with criticism and so forth, let me just say that Candace Owens has in a lot of ways been through the ringer last year or so, and I'm not even getting into all the particulars and everything. I don't even really understand all of it or whatever, but there's been this whole sort of fracture between her and other people on the right and even in right-wing media. And so I'm not sure if there's a relationship between this and that or not or whatever, but that's what she's referring to. If you're wondering like what's going on, she's saying people are attacking Tucker Carlson or whatever, is that there have been these critiques recently of coming from the right on other right-wing figures, or also at times coming from the left too, but just a lot of like criticism that she's been getting, and Tucker Carlson and some others. And of course, Jordan Peterson, if you know who he is, Jordan Peterson tore in to Candace Owens the other day. You know, we should actually look at Jordan Peterson, what he said to her the other day, because it's kind of loony and out there, but look into that. But anyway, so this is her next tweet. She says, I don't trust this at all. And what she's referring to is a passage in Jessica's Substack article where she says that Tucker Carlson is on a weird bender, veering from recounting a demonic attack, blah, blah, blah. You remember that part, right? Okay. She says also, Jessica Krauss got in attacks on Ian Carroll and Joe Rogan, all in the same newsletter. So again, she's pointing out that some of these podcast bros or whatever were attacked, criticized by Jessica. Then she writes, her argument is that everyone is trying to just be her. It's a lot to take in. Yeah, I mean, let me put it this way. Again, as someone who's a fellow content creator and YouTuber and all of that, it's very tempting at times to say that someone is copying something from you or what have you, or has stolen your idea, your inspiration or whatever. But you learn very quickly that that doesn't get you anywhere. And ironically, the only time that I've ever made this observation that someone seemed to be taking something from someone else was when I got annoyed that Candace Owens was accusing the Daily Mail of ripping off her show. And it was annoying to me because I felt like very early on in this Baldoni thing, she was taking inspiration, shall we say, from some other people, not me, but from some other people, some of my co-content creators, and not giving credit. But that's the only time I think that I've ever even pointed anything like this out. And it's just generally a useless way of thinking, because again, what you're going to find is that all of us crib from all of us. And I've done it before, and you try to give attribution where you can, but you can't, or you don't always. And by the way, on the subject of Candace Owens, whatever issues I had with her or were completely, I would say, put to rest on that count when she shared the audio file that I'd gotten from Ari Emanuel, that big bombshell file of him admitting that stuff on the Baldoni case. And she gave me credit. She left my name up there for 3 whole minutes on her show while she played that clip, which was really cool of her. And so I don't have any issues with her on that or any account right now. I don't agree with the Macron stuff. I mean, I still don't, and I have reasons for it, but it's a whole other topic. Okay, continuing on. So Candace says, wait. She wrote an entire newsletter about me and is now pretending that me responding is what's problematic. And so she's sharing Jessica Krauss's story that I already showed you. So, and then this, man, y'all, this is really a burn. I'm not laughing like it's funny. I'm laughing like I can't believe like how rough things are getting right now. This is a cartoon that Candace shared 7 hours ago. I think it speaks for itself. And look, y'all, I'm reporting on this. I'm laughing about it. I just want Candace and Jessica to know that if the shoe were on the other foot, I would totally expect them to report on something like this. If I get into some feud with somebody, if Megan and Kelly and I or something get into a feud, you can cover it. You can cover our Instagram sniping. Dude, best day of my life is the day Megan Kelly gets into a feud with me. She doesn't notice me. She doesn't know I exist. I live for the day that Megan Kelly could feud with me, would deign to feud with me. Megan Kelly, would you consider feuding with me? Please. Please, Megan Kelly. Okay. Anyway, back to this. PSA, if you write a newsletter about me that is wholly dishonest, I have every right to respond. You aren't being victimized by a response to what you wrote. Uh-oh. Getting intense. Then she's got, we're not going to play it, but she's got some random lady basically saying that Candace is right, Jessica is wrong. Okay. A little bit of Ryan Reynolds commentary here. Okay. Then, oh, this is a low blow. Then Candace writes this. House and Habit really posted this. Who is advising her right now? Ryan Reynolds? Please stop. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It's a low blow. It's a low blow. Okay. And then she did this video. Okay, so I'm going to play it where you can hear it. So I'm going to have to hold it back here, but it's Candace. You can see her there. Okay, so, but I'm going to have to hold it by the microphone so you can hear. Hold on a second.
Actually have the Duchess of Wales, Catherine. Catherine, you may have heard of her.
Wait.
Sorry, guys. I was going to keep posting, but I actually have the Duchess of Wales, Catherine. Catherine, you may have heard of her on the line. So I will be unable to communicate with you for the rest of the evening. Please do understand.
So she's making fun of House and Habit, saying that she was too busy at the White House, basically, to respond to any of this right now. And so she's making fun of her. She's saying, I've got the Duchess of Wales or whatever on the line or waiting for me or hanging out, so whatever. And she's got she's reposting a few of her fans. And then, okay, so then she says, right, she types this. Yeah, I'm trying to see if she's reposting it or she's typing it. Whatever, this is what she posted. Look at this. Okay. All I can tell you, this is Candace's story. All I can tell you is Candace been a real one, a girl's girl, never a mean girl since day one. Okay. Oh, wait, that's not it. The next one. Here we go. Look at this. I just found out that House and Habits, Jessica's best friend, who has been with her for 14 years, is no longer her best friend and has quit working for her, plus blocked her on Instagram because she fears her wrath. Also, writer so-and-so similarly quit 3 weeks ago after 2 years on the job. Apparently, everyone is trying to be me. Now, she's quoting Jessica's newsletter. Apparently, quote, everyone is trying to be me, and I made you is a random accusation that Jessica keeps launching at everyone, and people have had enough. Now, y'all, this is really getting... I said earlier that I thought that they could work this out, and I was joking. They'd probably have it worked out by tomorrow, but I didn't realize what the latest stuff was that's being put on Instagram. This was 2 hours ago. So Candace now is outing particular people. She's not even saying that it's like random anonymous people. She's saying here's a specific person, and she names them. Here's a specific person, and these are people who have been with her for years and years, and they have quit because they are afraid of her or they're having issues with her. That's I did not realize that things had gotten that serious. I mean, in terms of what they're kicking back at each other now on Instagram. So there's definitely no working this out anytime soon. Okay, next post, Candace types, I also just found out that House and Habit encouraged a hit piece to be written on her site by telling the writer that Meghan McCain really wanted to read it. LMAO. That's objectively funny to me for some reason. Oh man, if she's bringing Megan McCain into this now, this thing is like threatening Jessica and Candace and Megan McCain in a feud. That's going to be some intense shit there. She says, I also just found out that House and Habit encouraged a hit piece to be written on her site by telling the writer that Megan McCain really wanted to read it. Okay. Then she says, now she says this, Megan McCain hates me and Tucker Carlson so much, I could just picture her salivating for some reason, and it's objectively hilarious. I don't think Megan McCain needed to be brought into this. I mean, this is hearsay. She's saying that she heard someone say that Jessica said Megan McCain would read this. This is so many degrees removed from actual Megan McCain. So I don't like that. I think that's shady, but whatever. But I understand she's trying to make a larger point here about that Candace, that there's this hit piece that people behind the scenes were trying to get going on her. So I get that. I get that too. Oh man. She says, where there is smoke. Oh wait. This is getting more serious, y'all. I almost now I'm dreading each new. It's funny because when I started this out, it was very funny and lots of levity. And now as I get deeper in each text, each message, each story, I'm like, ooh. She writes this. Where there is smoke, we're still on Candace. Where there is smoke, there tends to be fire, which is why I tell people who watch my show to always rely on your gut. And even if you build up trust with people, be sure to continually question things. People change, and politics is a funny industry that changes people faster than most others. She says, guys, here we go. Here come the DMs. She says, guys, House and Habit is now in my DMs telling me that she's going to expose me for, quote, hiding extreme wealth, unquote. And then she shows a DM from House and Habit. Let me get really close. House and Habit writes, your raging hypocrisy, hiding extreme wealth and pretending to be a victim of censorship. It's laughable. No one trusts you. Keep up with Harvey and Tate and Kanye. Great company. Then Candace replies, LOL, what extreme wealth am I hiding? Ha ha ha, you definitely got to do a Substack on that one. I'm interested. Jessica says, while calling everyone else a whore. And then she says, challenge accepted. Jessica says, challenge accepted. And Candace writes, ha ha ha, K, keep me posted. Holy shit, y'all. I'm glad it's not me. That's all I keep thinking. You want to know what I'm really thinking, y'all? I'm thinking I'm so glad I'm not fucking in this for a change. It's not me for a change. Oh, man. Oh, man. I mean, I hate it, too. It's sad because, these are people I've, in various ways and for various reasons, respect. But, man. Candace Owens writes, I swear on everything, if I find out that I've been working 5 days a week pregnant, only to find out via a Substack that I'm secretly a Saudi Arabian princess, I'm going to be big mad. I will never forgive any of you. Laugh, laugh, laughing signs. Okay, more from the House and Habit DMs. She says, everyone has noticed how you're pivoting. Then Candace replies, Jessica, respectfully, you're very new here, and also you sound like a middle schooler when you accuse people of copying you. I have covered culture since I worked at Vogue and Glamour magazine, and I was 20, LOL. You just sound weird accusing people of copying you for covering culture. It's not something worth defending because this is legit a middle school fight, LOL. And then Jessica replies, you are the one who sounds like a lost newcomer. Candace then replies, using arguments like everyone is saying is just way too middle school, LOL. And then House and Habit replies, shouldn't you spend more time And then that's broken off there. Wait. Yeah, that's broken off. So the next one is this. Candace writes in the caption, I have no idea what she's talking about or why she keeps working Trump into everything, but I'm trying to keep her focused on the hidden wealth because I want it so bad for me. And then, so this is the chat. House and Habit says, you're lamer than I thought. LOL. It's embarrassing. No wonder Trump blocked you. To which then Candace replies, I think someone should be a friend and take your phone away for the evening, but keep me updated on the hidden wealth angle because I'd like to take a longer maternity leave this time around. I'm glad it's not me. I'm just glad it's not me. Okay, then Candace writes, laugh my ass off. Oh, dear God, someone please take her phone. Now she's reposting something that Jessica posted saying, I was told today by multiple sources that Candace is banned from the White House because of her anti-Semitic stance. Candace posted this. It's a picture of that Everyone I Don't Like is Hitler book and says that's House and Habit right now. Then this is Candace's final post so far, although we might be able to expect more. She says, were these the same sources who told her I was hiding secret wealth? Are the sources in the room with you right now, Jessica? Ooh. All right. And then let's look at the final crop of Jessica Reed stories about Candace. Just a second. This is now Jessica's story. So Candace is saying here in a DM, you're out of control. I'm wondering where your fury actually stems. No, I'm sorry. I guess that's Jessica saying that you're out of control. Yeah. Okay. Jessica, in reply to Candace's story, is saying you're out of control. I'm wondering where your fury actually stems. And then this was the text. The story that Candace shared earlier. I was told today by multiple sources that Candace is banned from the White House for the anti-Semitic stance. Then here's a picture. Man, this is getting so personal. This is a picture of Candace with her husband, George Farmer, who is British. Anyway, I assume that's probably, and then House and Habit, Jessica writes, I assume that's probably very frustrating for someone who got married in a MAGA hat. Oh, frustrating being banned from the White House is what she's saying. So she just said Candace is banned from the White House. And then she says, I'm sure that's frustrating to you since you got married in a MAGA hat. Okay, so is this their, I guess, wedding photos there? Candace Owens' husband is, he's a cutie. Okay. Sorry, I got lost there. Go back. Well, that was it. That was the last one. So definitely more stories on this being posted by Candace, more sniping from her end. But again, she says in response to the unfair things that were said about her in Jessica's essay. So I don't know, y'all. I guess these two ain't patching it up anytime soon. Oh, man. I'm just going to continue to say I am glad it's not me. But look, this is kind of how I want to end things. Each of these ladies individually, separately, have been through the absolute ringer of the last month in terms of getting major online attacks and getting slammed by a bunch of people and in a lot of ways misrepresented, misunderstood, pilloried, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sure I don't know even a tiny sliver of what's actually gone on and going on behind the scenes. So maybe, there can be some understanding on both sides that it's been a rough ride and maybe just to call a truce, because these two, when they're working together, they're very interesting and they're very powerful. And we've seen that before. So anyway, I will continue to watch Candace's show and we'll continue to check out Jessica's Instagram. But yeah, we will see where this goes. Thank you to everybody for sticking with us. It's been 2 hours. Some of you made it through those horrible pauses. Oh, there were so many pauses. Oh, so many. And yeah, we'll see. Maybe we'll regroup tomorrow and we'll check out everything that was said and done by Candace and Jessica in the preceding hours, in the overnight hours. But yeah, I appreciate y'all. If you came in the middle or you came in late or toward the end, then you can go back at the beginning, and because I do think that there's an interesting backstory to what Jessica was writing, even if I disagree with a number of the conclusions that she came to. But interesting. Thank you, ladies. I guess interesting entertainment, no matter what. And again, I'm just glad it's not me. But if you enjoy my work, check out if you enjoy this video, I should say, check out my work, check out my YouTube. If you got some fun out of this, leave me a tip. My tip jar is below. Always appreciated. And I thank my mods again, and I will see y'all later. Good night. Wow. Good night. Holy shit.